God damn it. I had my window shrunk down and I couldn't see the go live button. So, my fault. Like, seriously. It. Hang on a sec. Like, seriously. I'm like, I can see myself in this little window here. And when I pop out the chat and I resize this window, I lose that go live button. Like, put it somewhere where I can see it with the settings. Like, come on. So, that's only going to happen a few more times, I'm sure. Well, so how's everyone doing today? Having a frustrating start, personally, but yeah, what do you guys want to talk about? Um, yeah, just let me know if you can see and hear me and all that stuff, because I've pretty much run out of steam on this, having to deal with the technical issues. Um, but yeah, let's try to move on from that. I'm doing a Q&A probably next week. We're at about 31,000 subscribers now, so I usually do that every 1,000 subscribers or so. And yeah, so if you have questions for that, you can leave them here, but probably the best place for that is in the comment section, because or in the last Q&A's comment section, because the comments that are on this live stream don't get saved. So after the stream ends, I lose them all. And yeah, besides that, we've got the channel memberships unlocked for YouTube. So below any of the videos or on my channel page, you'll see a join button. That I have that set up similar to my Patreon. So $2 and $5 and $10, you get various perks. You get access to the patron show videos. I just posted episode 37, so there's 37 of those videos for you to catch up on. And the $2 level gets you that. At the $10 level, you also get a mixing critique, so you can send me one song a month, and I'll give it a listen and tell you my thoughts. And what else? Oh, on YouTube, you get a special icon. Whenever you leave a comment, it'll have an icon to show you're a member. And we can also do, what's the word? Emoticons? Emojis, that's the word. Special emojis for in the live stream chats and the regular comments that are only for the members. Someone said vertical view. I don't know what that means. What do you mean by vertical view? Can you do a vertical scrolling title like Star Wars? Yeah, so you can make it scroll up, but you can't do that. The perspective shift, the vanishing point effect, you can't do that. Yeah, the shaking of the camera, I can't fix that yet. If I, it's sitting on top of my computer or my monitor speaker, and if the camera's any further away, like on a tripod or something, then I can't reach it to like set autofocus and things. So yeah, try not to shake it, but yeah, every time I touch my desk, it does shake. I need like a sandbag or something, maybe. Maybe that'll work. I should probably talk about like the next video that I'm working on, which is about the Reaper theme that I've been customizing. Um, I recorded like 2 hours of content yesterday on it after spending like 10 hours like writing a script. And at the moment, I can't even plan on doing the rough cut. I need some time away from that topic because it's just been like super long and stressful, I guess. Nothing worked the way I expected, and it's super technical. And I got bored recording it, so I gotta figure out what stuff I need to re-record and things like that. All right, so let's look at the questions that have come in here. Yeah, so I talked about the vertical title movement in Star Wars. You can you can automate movement of titles, but you can't do that vanishing point effect. Um, TCP plugin parameters. I'm going to pan out. Okay, so let's look at that. So in Reaper, you can do you can like add an effect to a track like this, and then you can embed it in the TCP like that. But that only works with some of the Reaper plugins, some of the JS effects. But for third-party plugins, there's a bit of a workaround for it. So, for example, if I wanted to do, I don't know, equal by T-Rex, and I had a, let's say a high shelf, is that this one? Let's say I have a high shelf here like this. I can link this to a parameter. So band to gain, we will, what am I looking for? Parameter modulation link. We'll link it to another parameter like the REAQ high shelf gain. And yeah, so I can grab this. I can use REAQ as a controller for the other third-party EQ. So it's kind of like, it's not like a great workaround, but it's something we can do for now. But in the future, I think even the latest, what do you call it? The latest betas for Reaper have an API function added, so third-party plugins can add a little flag in their plugin code that will let Reaper know that it's able to embed it. So yeah. Going back, let's see. Pipeline asks, a theme where we can tell the difference between muted and unmuted items. Yeah, let's have a look at that. I mean, one of the main things that helped with being able to edit audio in the Reaper 6 theme is just changing the empty track background areas. I always forget what that's called. But I mean, to me, this is pretty obvious that this is muted, and I didn't do anything special for that. And yeah, what's the other one? What do you say? Stretch markers. Yeah, I haven't looked at that at all, but that's something that should be possible to change. I think that's working pretty well, just changing the background color. I can see that fine. But that's something I can look into and changing in my theme. I haven't thought about it at this point, or until this point. Okay, question from Nathan Bowman. I often find myself using Reaper to conduct virtual sound checks through an or M32, a way to assign those outputs faster than just routing each one alone. I guess the routing matrix, that's usually the fastest. I think with my my outputs, I can't actually do that right now, but I'll just add in a bunch of tracks. You can see what that looks like. So like you can drag diagonally and assign inputs, or you can assign outputs like this. That's probably a lot faster than going into the routing button and then changing the hardware out individually. That's pretty much all I can think of for that, but I don't know, maybe someone else has another idea for that. And once you do it once, you can template that probably. Audio by Sam asks, which stock plugins are in your mixing and producing workflow? I use ReEQ fairly often, mostly just because I have it shortcutted. So, I can always pull up ReEQ on a track instantly. But really, I could do that with any plugin. I like that ReEQ is infinite bands, and the mouse controls are really intuitive. They make a lot of sense for me, especially like the new things like double clicking down here makes a notch filter. That's really great. But I don't care that much about EQs. I like this one from T-Rex because it has MS mode, and I can have separate filters for mid and side, or control them both at the same time. And then there's all the different band shapes and stuff. But to me, they all pretty much sound the same. For more stock plugins, I use Recomp quite a lot. That's what I use for just simple sidechain ducking and things like that. Let's see. Transient controller, just because it's simple. It takes no CPU. It's just two controls. But if I really need a detailed transient controller, transient shaper, I'd use the Joey Sturgis one instead, Transify, because it's multiband. Or there's the Sonic Anomaly one, Transpire. But I mean, it's really only, these are all so similar sounding that it almost doesn't matter. So that's why I use the JS one a lot more. I use ReXComp fairly often, but I have a lot better multiband comps as well. So, I mean, it kind of depends. If I'm doing it for myself, then I'll use a third-party one. But if I'm doing it for a tutorial video, I'll usually use the stock plugins. All right, back to questions. For vocal compression, put on a bus or route the bus to a compression track and parallel, which is better? Kevin, I think you can do both. You don't necessarily need to do both, but you can. So I'm usually compressing the vocal directly on the vocal track, on a folder. Let me switch cameras. Uh, I'm compressing the vocal on the vocal track, and then usually again on the vocal bus. And for an effect, I might have a distortion or another compressor in parallel. So I'll send from the original vocal tracks into parallel track with heavy compression, and I'll blend that in parallel. And that just helps bring up the quieter words and things like that. Makes the vocal sound thicker, not necessarily louder all the time. Um, I kind of stopped doing that recently, but I think it's just a matter of putting it into my template so I can more easily do that on a regular basis. It's something that I almost forget about, but yeah, good question. Question from Kyle. Um, I lost it. When I open Reaper, I have a ghost of the master fader from an API theme I used a while back. It goes away after it fully loads, but is kind of annoying. Huh. Um, I have no idea. There must be it must be something that's in the theme folder, but you need to but maybe you have a screen set loading at start, something like that. If you can find the image file, you just remove it from the theme folder. That's a very strange issue, though. It's weird. I mean, there's a lot of weird things with Reaper on startup, so I don't know. Can I stack two or more virtual instruments on one channel or track at the same time using the effects list instead of one MIDI track sending to other channels via routing? Yeah, you can have more than one virtual instrument on a track. I don't really see the benefit. Um, it's a lot less flexible in terms of mixing it. So having multiple tracks is usually the easier way in the long run. I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. Getting audio play problems using Soundly and Reaper simultaneously. Is that due to RAM? Maybe. Is Soundly playing out through Reaper? I can't remember. Is Soundly a plugin? No, it's not. I can't say I've run into that myself. I'm not really sure what's going on there. It's either an audio interface issue or, I mean, it could be RAM, but it's probably more likely CPU. Um, okay, so back to that routing question. Faster way to automate the process. I mean, there might be a script. I very rarely route to multiple outputs. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just searching the action list right now. I'm sure it could be scripted, like you select all of your maybe bus tracks and you can automate or hit a button to send them to sequential outputs starting at 3 or something like that. It's probably possible, but I don't think there's anything set up for that right now. How would I set up a section of a song to continually repeat while I'm adjusting plugin parameters, etc.? I mean, okay. So that's a simple one. Basically, you just enable the repeat function in the transport bar. So as this is playing, um, I can adjust EQ, that sort of stuff. If you mean automating, it's slightly different, but I don't know. Yeah, if you mean automating, it's a slightly different story, but yeah, you'll have to clarify that. I'm almost always doing automation in that way, making time selections and just looping the chorus over and over and getting every single track set up the way that I like. Where was that? I'm scrolling through the chat. I'm like super far back, and it keeps jumping ahead, so I have to scroll back. Sorry for that. What's the shortcut for re-EQ? Okay, I'll show you that. So it's called track EQ. Track insert / show re-EQ. You can set up shortcuts for any plugin, but it doesn't quite work the same way. So let's say if you wanted, I don't know, if I wanted this plugin CQ to be my default EQ, or like if I wanted to add this plugin using a shortcut, you right click it, create shortcut, and then you can just choose anything here. I'll just replace my default one. It'll say, do you want to override it? Yes. So if I select a track, press Q, it's added that plugin to the track. If I select this item, press Q, it's added it to just this item in this area. But the thing is, if you hit the button again, it's going to add it a second time. But with that shortcut I showed you, track EQ, this one actually inserts it or shows it. So it's, yeah, so there's kind of a benefit of using re-EQ in that case. Hope that answers that. Is there a way to disable auto show of automation when I move an item from one track to another? Yep. So that is this button here in the main toolbar, which is called envelope points move with media items. So let me show you what that looks like. Put in volume automation here. And if I drag this to another track, the envelope lane pops up. But if we have this turned off and we drag that down to another track, the automation doesn't come with it. So it's a useful thing to have if you want to move your automation along with the audio that it relates to. But when you're going between different tracks, even like cutting and pasting, you want to have this turned off if you don't want that automation to come with it. So, I mean, I would say keep it on most of the time, but just in those rare cases where you're moving it around without the automation, that's what you do. Kyle says, just got T-Rax Max and so far loving it. Yeah, I've got most of the T-Rax plugins. They've done a lot of those, what do you call them? Group buy things. And also they did some sponsor things with me, so I got a lot of credits and things from that. And yeah, great stuff in there. I love that they have, unlinked left and right channels options and mid-side options. Plus, just in general, they sound great. A lot of the analog emulation ones I really like. Question about Cordgun and Scaler. If you demoed Cordgun a couple of months ago, I wonder if you or anyone has experience with Scaler in Reaper. Version 2 of Scaler should be announced at NAMM next week. I have not used Scaler. I don't know anything about it. Do you have any templates where Reaper is set up like an SSL desk with controls on the mixer, a bit like how Harrison Mix control is by default? It's something that you can definitely do on your own. It's really just a matter. Let's see. I know I've got a. Here's the British channel from T-Rex. So you can take all of these plugin controls and then add them to the track. So let's go to effects parameters, show in track controls. So you can have your, let's see, high pass frequency and low pass frequency. I'll just do those for now. And if your mixer is big enough and the option to show parameters is there, then you can kind of set this up the same way. You can have all of your controls here. Is this working? My filter is probably not visible. Yeah, so you can see them moving. I mean, honestly, if this is something that you want, your best bet is something like some sort of control surface. I use this one, the Nocturne. There's one from Korg, I think, that's very well designed and laid out for something like an SSL style. Brandon S. Heyer from the Noise Floor has that set up. I think he still uses that, but he definitely did a video where he's set up the Waves SSL channel and to have a dedicated controller for it. And of course, the Softtube Console 1 is laid out very much to work like that. So if that's something you want on every channel, the better thing to do would just be to have a control surface that does that. So you actually have physical control. You can automate more than one thing at a time. Okay, so John Walker says, love to watch this amazing live stream, but I can't right now. Will this be available later? Yeah, I'll keep it up. I had some technical difficulties at the beginning, but I think I can edit that out, or I don't know. But yeah, it'll be up on my channel, so you can, and I'll have a playlist of previous live streams as well. Does Reaper have a stock soft clipper, or what's a good third-party one to use? Great question. So Reaper does have a couple clippers, and those are some of my favorite ones. There's the JS Event Horizon. It's really a limiter, but it is also a clipper. These are my starting point settings. Anytime I use it, I start off with this. It's not a true peak limiter, so just be aware of that. There's also the soft clipper limiter. It's similar. Honestly, I would set it up basically the same, but well, I mean, it depends on what you're clipping. If you're clipping a master, then you probably want this at like, I don't know, -1 and maybe boost by 1. But if I'm like totally destroying a snare, I would probably put this at -3 or even like type in -12 here Um, with JS plugins, you can type in any value and it will probably work. I could set this to clip everything above -12, and it will do a pretty good job with that. Not always the cleanest one, but it does work. And Clip Shifter from LVC Audio is actually a really good one. So I like that this one actually has 2 different thresholds, kind of. And then lots and lots of other advanced controls, plus a graph to show it over time. Let's put this on the track with the music. So you can see what this does. Let's see. I think I've got this muted. It doesn't really matter. You don't need to hear it, really. But you can just see it has this really nice graph showing what it does with gain reduction meter here. You can link the 2 controls as well for a different sound. There's a clip shape option, control how much harmonics are added. Lots of great stuff with that. And yeah, I think that's all I have for like soft clippers. Oh wait, I did do a video comparing soft clippers before. Let me look that up. So I've got this video using the clipper and mastering, and I compare the JS soft clipper, the T-Rex clipper, and clip shifter. And yeah, I show you how I use them in a mastering project. But yeah, it's totally different if you're clipping kicks and snares and things like that. I saw a question about the theme here a second ago, and I lost it. I think I'm like 100 questions behind. What theme is your preference? I assumed multicolored waveforms show you something like intensity key. How would you set that up? Okay. So my preference right now for a theme is one that I've been customizing for about a month now. That's what you're seeing here. I will have a video next week, unless I get it done sooner than that, about my theme. Most likely it'll come out on Monday. I've got like 2 hours of content recorded for it, but I think I'm gonna have to reshoot a lot of stuff just to like keep it interesting, or like work around technical issues where things just didn't work when I was recording. But yeah, it's not like drastically different from Reaper 6 default. So besides that theme, I was using default 5 nitpicky edition pretty much all the way through the Reaper 5 cycle. The downside of this one is it's not a high DPI theme. So, I mean, I could probably modify this to make it high DPI, but that's a lot of work. But anyways, yeah, that's what I was using before that. But now my own default is what I prefer. These multicolored waveforms are actually showing like intensity of like frequency. So it's called spectral peaks. You find that in the view menu, and you go to peaks display settings, and you just enable spectral peaks here. And you can change the spectrum by dragging. This isn't a Reaper 6 exclusive function or anything. It was added sometime during Reaper 5 like in the first year of Reaper 5, I think. So the default is peaks, it's just black. Spectral peaks is really helpful for like finding transitions between different notes. So if there's like a bent note and you can kind of see the pitch change, and then you can know where to edit, things like that. So the stuff where it's like mostly black, that's just where it's more of a noisy thing where there's not a real pitch there. Hope that makes sense. Johnny says, cannot get Reaper to acknowledge new plugins for some reason. Usually that's a matter of going to the preferences and going to your VST settings here and just making sure that your list here contains all the folders that your plugins live in. It should rescan for new plugins on startup. I think this stuff works a lot easier on Mac than on Windows. Most of the time I see questions like that, it's from Windows users. And yeah, I guess because there's not real standard for where plugins go, each plugin company decides where they're going to put them. Yeah, they can just go anywhere. Okay, moving on from that. Have I always worked in Reaper, or did you transition from Pro Tools? Yeah, it's a great question. Let's see. I started off, I guess officially, I started off with FL Studio. Then I went to school for audio engineering, and they got me onto Pro Tools, and I was like a diehard Pro Tools fan. And I used that for as long as possible, but basically it was like costing me tons of money. It was crashing constantly. It did not work on Windows at all. So I used Reaper. No, I used Pro Tools 8 for I think about a year, but I just gave up on that company because they were constantly lying and things like that. There's all these limitations with the Pro Tools LE and M-powered versions that they had. And for me, it wasn't worth continuing with them. But at that time, I was also using Logic and Cubase and Sonar. And so I had experience with most of the DAWs. And Reaper took me at least a year to like. So when I finally bought a license, it was at 3.20, I think. And yeah, it was at that time there wasn't really a lot of tutorials. Kenny had some good tutorials. There was some people back then that were switching from Pro Tools at the same time. They made tutorials, and that really helped get me going. But the main thing that helped me learning it was just constantly doing projects, recording a lot, doing paid projects, mixing and mastering and things like that. And then from there, it was just a matter of, or once I started doing videos and everything, like I really started to learn it. So yeah, I mean, it's the best one for me by far. Everything else feels like a compromise, but even if the stuff in Reaper is not always straightforward. Could you please demonstrate reverbate? I'm not getting effective output by that. Reverbate is not a good plugin. I did do a video on it where I shared my presets and things, but it's just not a good plugin. It might not be too late to get some good plugins. There's some free reverb plugins out right now. Let me look that up. So there's a Arturia plate reverb. I think it's still available. It might already be too late for this one. Maybe, maybe not. No, it's too late. Okay, so that was only available for like 2 weeks, but Native Instruments has Realm. Um, so, so yeah, you can get Realm Reverb, which I did a video on when it was like I think the day or two after it came out, and that's a good creative effect. But using the presets there, um, you're definitely going to get a better sound than you would sticking with Reaper's plugins. So I would not recommend that. I also did a video about making your own reverbs using using what? Using Reverb. Um, and I shared a bunch of presets. So if you want to stick with the Reaper stock plugins, then that's another good option for that. So I've got a big collection here. Where is it? Reaper blog IRs. So I've got all of these ones that I shared with the community. And these are completely like synthetic, like filtered white noise, pink noise types of reverbs. But again, they're better than the built-in reverb. So I would say use that instead. I think we're going to go about another maybe 10 minutes. David says, new to Reaper, might be basic. Is it easy to switch custom views for different tasks with the same project recording? Yes, that's a great question. This is something that I wanted to do a video on. Well, I have done videos on it, but it's one of the things that I see people wasting a lot of time on. It's not setting up window sets. Keep forgetting screen sets or window sets. So if I press 1, that gets me a layout that I use for most of my editing and things like that. If I press 2, it looks the same on this screen, but it's also put the mixer on my second screen. If I press 3, it goes to a single monitor view of Reaper's mixer and the selected track. So I'm using this for most of my videos. I've got custom toolbars showing in the correct spots. I press 4 on my keyboard. I've got a video editing layout where I've got my action list, media explorer, my mixer, my editing toolbar, my effects browser, video window, my monitoring effects chain. So if I don't have a second monitor, this is my layout for editing videos. And if I press 5, it does a full screen video monitor, and then my arrange view is on my second monitor, which is for long-term editing. Looking straight ahead is much better than looking down at the laptop. So that's called screen sets. There's a window you need to set those up called the screen sets and layouts window. And we're going to go to the Windows page. And I've got these keyboard shortcuts customized. I can't remember what the defaults are, but if I want to, if I want to load a screen set, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I want to save, it's Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So highly recommend setting that up. It's one of the best things you can do to increase the speed of work. Being able to instantly jump between editing and mixing and not have to like remember what's the shortcut to open the mixer or, all those sorts of things. So, and it's a great way to, like, if you have plugin windows up on your screen, it's a great way to clear all of that stuff out as well. Is there a way to show the effects list in the TCP? I have a plugin for it, but it's a bit awkward. Yeah, that's the script you have is probably the only way. It exists because there's no other way to do it. I don't have a solution for that It's not something I would use personally, so I haven't really sought that out yet. Question about OMF files compatibility. It's not going to happen. Next question. Change the duration of a project. 150 bar project, so I delete 20 bars, but the project is still as long as it was before. How do you make it? I mean, a project will zoom out infinitely. Is that what you mean? Like you want to kind of prevent it from zooming out a certain length? I'm going to assume that's what you mean. So you can set the, where is it? You can set the project length limit here. So it's right now it's set to 3 hours. So if I zoom out, the farthest out it's going to do is 3 hours. Something like that. Yeah. Or maybe that's 3 minutes. I don't know. I think that's 3 hours. I'll set it to 13. And now when I zoom out, it goes about, it will let you zoom out about like 10% further than the limit. But if you're recording, it will stop at that point. So it's just something to be aware. Like it will prevent it from zooming out infinitely. But really, if you want to like zoom out your whole project, you're better off using the shortcut zoom project. I'm using a custom one, but this one here, it's going to show you the full content of your project. So that one is usually assigned to like Alt A, I think. Or maybe it's just A. I don't remember the defaults at all. Okay, I think I'm going to do one more, and then I will copy all the questions into a document so that I can get a head start on everything else. Actually, maybe I'll just copy everything. Yeah, okay, so what was I doing? One more question I've lost. Who was next? Okay, so how to make the cursor move along with the track while playing. So, all right, so if I play this here, the cursor is 1 inch from the end of the screen. If I hit play, it's going to scroll over automatically. So I've got options menu, automatically scroll view during playback. You can also turn on continuous scrolling, which looks like this. So go back here, hit play. I have to say this looks a lot less choppy now than it did in version 5. So let's say you've got continuous scrolling turned off, or on. No, continuous scrolling turned off, but scrolling during playback is on. But you click on an item. What happens? Nothing happens. It doesn't scroll anymore. The shortcut, I had someone else ask this earlier this week, is view play. View go to play position. So so hit play, and I'll touch an item, so my edit cursor moves, but the play position doesn't change. And if I'm done editing and I want to go back to the continuous scrolling, I hit run here. So you could just add that to some shortcut, and now it's going to go back to scrolling either continuously or not. So if I edit this here, it's supposed to be continuous scrolling, but it's not. If I hit run, now it catches up with the playhead again. Cool. So I'm going to copy all of the questions, and possibly get back to you with another video, or this will be in the Q&A session or something like that, which will probably be like next Friday. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you guys for joining me on this live stream. And once again, I should mention that we have memberships enabled on the channel now. So you can get some exclusive content like the patron show videos that I do. I've got 37 episodes of that right now. And you get badges and special emojis for when we're doing live streams and things like that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for being a fan of the Reaper blog and participating in these live streams. It's been a lot of fun. And I'll see you guys probably Monday with a new video. Thanks. See ya.